I used to stand inside a massive, roaring production plant, feeling completely paralyzed. Not by the complex machinery around me, but because someone asked me a simple question in English, and I froze. I thought my brain was permanently broken. I was dead wrong. Would you like me to suggest some visual ideas or camera angles to make this opening hook look even more dramatic on screen? Look at the calendar on your wall. Another month has just slipped away. Are you still translating sentences in your head before you speak? Are you still freezing in panic when someone asks you a simple question? I know that dark, heavy feeling perfectly well. I used to sit in total silence, watching other people move forward in life. I watched them speak freely, connect naturally, and claim the exact opportunities I desperately wanted, while I felt trapped inside my own mind. For the longest time, I honestly believed my brain was just defective. I told myself I simply did not have the natural DNA for languages. But I was completely wrong, and the hard truth I eventually uncovered is going to shock you. You are not slow. You are not lacking intelligence. You have just been brainwashed into using a completely broken system. Welcome to Glaze English. I am so glad we are taking this journey together today. If you are ready to finally break out of that frustrating trap and build real, unstoppable fluency with me, please hit that subscribe button right now. Your support gives me the pure motivation to keep digging deep and creating these powerful videos for our community every single day. Now, let us deeply examine why we are really stuck. We have been taught to treat learning like a lucky accident. We act like people blindly throwing random chemicals into a beaker, just hoping a magical reaction of fluency will suddenly happen. We hoard grammar rules like old, useless receipts. We collect thousands of random vocabulary words. We sit in our rooms and watch endless tutorial videos, passively consuming information, secretly praying that if we just collect enough heavy stones, a beautiful house will somehow build itself. But hope is never a strategy. As someone who instinctively looks at the world through the lens of complex industrial systems and raw materials, I had a massive realization. You cannot produce a strong, high-quality result without a precise, controlled process. If you feed raw materials into a massive production kiln without controlling the exact thermal temperature or the correct airflow, the final product will completely crumble into dust. That is exactly what we are doing to our brains. We are feeding our minds random English information without a clear, logical operating manual. Learning is not some magical gift given at birth. It is a highly specific mechanical skill. It is an engine. And right now, your engine has the wrong parts installed. Once you finally understand the mechanics of how to learn, absolutely everything changes. You can upgrade your communication, your daily confidence, your career, and your entire reality, because all of it sits behind this one single ability. Today, we are going to tear down that old, heavy, broken method that has kept us quiet for years. I am not standing here as some perfect expert giving you a strict, boring lecture. I am a fellow builder walking right beside you in the trenches of this exact same struggle. Together, we are going to explore a proven, logical framework to completely rewire how we absorb information. We are going to figure out how to learn anything fast, and we are going to use it to entirely hack our English-speaking fluency. This is not about trying harder or studying longer hours. It is about completely changing the machine in our heads. The door is right in front of us, and it is finally time we open it together. So, if we are finally ready to walk through that door and leave the broken methods behind, our very first step is to completely change how we look at the machinery of learning. Think about walking into a massive manufacturing plant for the first time. You do not just walk up to a giant, complicated control panel and start aggressively pressing random buttons, hoping the factory will run smoothly. If you do that, the entire system crashes. Yet, that is exactly how most of us approach learning English. We just jump right into the dark, opening random textbooks, watching scattered videos, and repeating phrases without any real direction. Before we ever touch the machinery of a new skill, we desperately need a blueprint. This is called meta-learning. It simply means learning how to learn the subject before you actually study it. We have to stop and ask powerful questions. What are the core parts of this language? What are the most common mistakes beginners make? We must understand the map before we start driving. Otherwise, we are just wasting our precious fuel. When we finally look at that map, our brains often panic. We see massive grammar textbooks, complex academic theories, and thousands of confusing rules. It feels like a terrifying machine with 100 buttons, and we tell ourselves it is just too hard. But here is a secret I hold on to whenever I face a complicated technical issue. Complex things are rarely actually complex. They are usually just a lot of very simple things tightly stacked on top of each other. Our job is to break them down. If a machine has 100 buttons, my experience tells me that only about 5 of them truly matter for daily basic operation. Everything else is just an optional feature. We have to find our 5 buttons. If we read a complex English rule and cannot instantly translate it into simple, everyday words, we are not learning. We are just letting the complexity intimidate us. This directly leads us to a principle that completely shifted my entire reality. It is the 80-20 rule of mastery. Most of us waste years of our lives trying to learn every single detail equally. We try to memorize 20,000 vocabulary words, master every rare idiom, and perfect every tiny exception in the grammar rules. We exhaust ourselves trying to be perfect everywhere, and as a result, we feel stuck and defeated. Masters do the exact opposite. They focus brutally on the critical few. In daily, natural English conversation, people only use about 2,000 to 3,000 high-frequency words. Mastering that specific 20% gives you 80% of the results you want. But to execute this, we have to make a painful sacrifice. We have to stop dividing our attention. We proudly claim we are learning new software, starting a business, getting fit, and learning English all at the exact same time. Divided focus always equals divided, weak results. Think about the sun above us. Sunlight is beautiful and warm, but it is entirely scattered. It cannot even burn a piece of paper. But if you take that exact same energy and concentrate it tightly into a laser, it can cut straight through heavy steel. For the next 90 days, we have to stop being scattered sunlight. We must choose to be a laser. Pick one single goal. Protect our focus fiercely, and watch how dangerously fast our English actually grows. Once we focus our minds like a laser on that critical 20%, we desperately need a powerful engine to keep us moving forward without burning out. That engine runs entirely on momentum, and the spark that starts it is the early win. Think about how our brains actually work. We are biologically wired to chase rewards. If you and I study intensely for a week and feel absolutely no progress, our minds label that effort as pure pain and beg us to quit. We need dopamine, the chemical signal that tells us to keep going. We have to engineer our first week to guarantee a victory. For our English journey, an early win is not delivering a flawless presentation. It is simply looking in a mirror and confidently speaking 10 basic everyday sentences without freezing. The moment you say those phrases smoothly, you feel a surge of power, and your brain believes you are someone who can actually learn. To protect that fragile new belief, I rely on a simple system called the 3C protocol. The first C is clarity. We cannot wake up and say a vague phrase like, "I am going to study English today." Clarity means giving the brain a precise target, like, "I will practice asking questions for 20 minutes." The second C is concentration. I used to sit at my desk with my phone buzzing, jumping between notifications and textbooks, tricking myself into thinking I was working hard. That is not practice. That is just pretending. The brain requires deep, uninterrupted focus to rewire itself. The third C is consistency. The mind learns through steady frequency, not exhausting intensity. Practicing a little bit every single day builds a new identity, and that always beats relying on our changing moods. But all of this falls apart if we step into the most dangerous trap of all, which is mistaking passive consumption for active learning. I spent years trapped here. I watched hundreds of videos, highlighted notes, and felt incredibly productive. But my actual ability to speak remained completely empty. Passive learning feels safe because we never risk looking foolish. But here is the brutal reality we must face together. You can watch 100 detailed videos on how to swim, but the second you jump into deep water, you will still drown. The brain only learns by doing. We have to stop just watching and start producing. We must force ourselves into active learning by speaking out loud, writing real sentences, and trying to explain concepts simply. It is deeply uncomfortable, I know. But that exact discomfort is the true feeling of your brain building permanent skill. Once we push past that discomfort and finally start producing active output, we enter a quiet phase where the initial excitement dies and the real grind begins. Let us be completely honest with each other about what mastery actually looks like behind closed doors. Starting a new English habit feels incredibly exciting, but repeating the exact same fundamental drills on a Tuesday night when you are totally exhausted from a long shift at the factory? That is deeply, intensely boring. Yet, I have come to realize that repetition is the only true language that mastery speaks. The first time we try to pronounce a difficult phrase, the connection in our brain is weak, like trying to hack your way through a thick, overgrown jungle. You barely leave a mark. But if you force yourself to walk that exact same path every single day, it turns into a clear road, and eventually, a smooth, high-speed highway. That highway is automatic fluency. When daily repetition feels boring and you hit a frustrating plateau, please do not quit. Boredom is not a failure. It is simply the beautiful moment when your brain is finally stabilizing the new skill. However, I learned the hard way that blind, stubborn repetition is a dangerous trap. If I mispronounce a word and repeat that mistake 1,000 times, I do not get better. I just become perfectly wrong. We desperately need to tighten our feedback loop. Think about driving your car with a digital map. If you make a wrong turn, the system immediately tells you to reroute, and you correct your path in seconds. Imagine driving for an hour without that map before realizing you are completely lost. That is exactly what happens when we try to learn English without any immediate correction. We must find the right teachers, partners, or systems that can instantly point out our errors. A great guide compresses your timeline, saving you from years of painful trial and error. Above all, we must deeply respect the craft of learning. In my daily professional life, I know for a fact that if you rush a foundation, the entire heavy structure will eventually collapse. We cannot skip the boring, basic stages of English and expect to sound like confident professionals later. We must treat our practice schedule with profound respect. If we honor the unsexy fundamentals today, we are silently building the invisible power that will make us completely unstoppable tomorrow. When we finally build that invisible power and start honoring our daily practice, we run straight into the hardest psychological wall of all, the fear of looking completely foolish. I have to be brutally honest with you about my own mindset when I started this journey. My ego desperately wanted me to sound intelligent and professional the very first time I opened my mouth to speak English. We all naturally want to skip the ugly, awkward phase and instantly be recognized as masters. But here is the champion's mindset we have to adopt today if we actually want to change our lives. The ugly phase is not an option. It is the mandatory entrance fee to real fluency. If you are not willing to look stupid for a little while, you will never look great. Think about stepping onto a sheet of ice for the very first time. You are going to wobble, your arms will flail, you will fall down hard, and you will feel a deep, burning embarrassment. But the person who eventually becomes a magnificent, fast skater is not the one who completely avoids falling. It is simply the person who fell the most times, collected that raw feedback, stood back up, and kept moving forward. Learning is just a temporary humiliation that buys you permanent confidence. We must find the absolute courage to speak while we are still making terrible grammatical mistakes. We have to be brave enough to use our own unique voices too. So many of us try to perfectly copy the exact style or accent of someone else, and we feel totally crushed when we cannot sound exactly like them. But mastery is not about erasing your true identity. It is about merging your own personality with the new skill. The world does not need a second-rate copy. It always rewards the original. Once we find that courage and embrace our unique style, we reach the final and most powerful phase of this entire framework. It is a philosophy I live by, and it is called keeping the weak. I want you to deeply think about why most people actually fail. It is almost never because they lack the mental capacity to learn. They fail because their consistency is incredibly fragile. They sit down and plan a perfect, extreme routine. They promise themselves they will study English for 3 hours every single night. Then, a normal life event happens. You have to stay late at the plant. You feel totally drained. You miss one single day, and then the most toxic lie enters your brain. You tell yourself that the streak is broken, the perfect plan is ruined, and so you completely surrender. We have to completely destroy the myth of the perfect routine. We do not need perfect, heroic days. We need repeated, solid weeks. Think about a physical process I see all the time. Think about trying to boil a heavy pot of water. If you turn the stove to maximum heat for 2 minutes and then turn it completely off for 10 minutes, the water cools down. If you turn it back on, then off again, you can repeat that exhausting cycle for an entire year, and that water will never, ever boil. That is exactly how the average person tries to learn English. Huge bursts of motivation followed by weeks of total silence. But if you keep the heat turned on consistently, even at a low and steady temperature, the water will inevitably reach the boiling point. Consistent heat changes the entire state of the material. A small session of 30 minutes done consistently will always beat a massive session done rarely. To keep that heat on, I use one unbreakable rule: never miss twice. Missing 1 day of practice is just human reality, but missing 2 days is the birth of a new destructive habit. When we stumble, we do not panic or negotiate with ourselves. We simply return to the work the very next day. Eventually, the daily practice just becomes who you are. The truth is, most people quit in the dark, silent valley when progress is totally invisible. They water the seed for weeks and see nothing, not realizing the roots are growing deep underground. True mastery is built in those quiet, boring, unseen weeks where absolutely nobody is clapping for you. You are not slow, you are just untrained, and today you are choosing to change that. I am so proud to be on this journey with you. Promise yourself that you will keep the heat on. Your future deserves your discipline. Now go learn. Now go build. Now go become. As we reach the end of this blueprint today, I want you to take a deep breath and look back at everything we just uncovered together. We started this journey feeling completely frustrated, secretly believing that our brains were simply too slow or not genetically wired to speak fluent English. But now, we can clearly see the undeniable truth. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are not broken, and you are not falling behind. You are just operating a complex machine without the right manual. We have completely dismantled that old, heavy way of learning. We now know that we must build a clear map before we start driving. We must brutally focus our energy on the critical 20% of the language that actually matters, and we must force ourselves into active, uncomfortable practice instead of just sitting back and passively watching videos. We also discovered the raw, unsexy truth about mastery. It demands the absolute courage to look foolish, the patience to endure boring repetition, and the discipline to keep the heat on week after week without ever demanding perfect days. The deepest lesson I have taken from this entire framework is that this is no longer just about learning how to speak English. It is about fundamentally changing who we are at our core. When you learn how to master a language using this deliberate system, you are actually learning how to conquer any massive obstacle in your life. You transform into a person who does not quit when the excitement fades and the work gets boring. You become someone who trusts the invisible growth happening beneath the surface, even when nobody is clapping for you. To apply this to your life right now, starting today, I want you to completely drop the heavy burden of trying to be perfect. Pick just one tiny, measurable goal for your English journey. Maybe it is just speaking your thoughts out loud in the mirror for 5 minutes every single morning before work. Accept that you will sound awkward at first. forgive yourself instantly when you stumble, but make a silent promise to yourself that you will never miss 2 days in a row. Now, I would love to hear from you. What is the one small, simple habit you are going to practice this week to keep your heat on? Please take a moment to leave a comment down below and share your specific plan. Your perspective might be the exact spark of inspiration that someone else in our community desperately needs to read today. If this video shifted your mindset and you want to keep building this unstoppable fluency with me, please hit that subscribe button right now. Your support means absolutely everything to this channel, and it gives me the pure motivation to keep showing up and making more powerful, life-changing videos for you. Thank you for walking this path with me today. Keep doing the week, and I will see you in the next one.